when we look around, we can see brave people, we can see people that have gone through adversity, people that have actually become victims, we can see people that actually ignore what's going on around them. But the most important thing is how we become resilient. And on today's show, we're going to be speaking to a guest who has gone through his own experience in life to come out as a resilient young man. Hi, this is Joey Bustill, and welcome to the Secret Men's Business Podcast. On today's show, we're going to be speaking to James Parr, who's going to be talking to us about disability, resilience, and living your best life. James, how are you?
Hello, I'm well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yeah, thank you for being on the show. It's lovely to speak to someone. I like speaking to young people who have got so much knowledge and information through their experience. And I think after reading your bio, I got really excited because I really related to you from my own personal experience. So before we start, do you want to, I guess, just tell the audience a little bit about you, where you've come from, your age, and so on?
Yeah. So I'm James. I'm 24 years old. I'm a right below knee amputee. I am currently studying and teaching. I work as an education support at a primary school. I also have my own business working with children who have a disability. And it sounds weird, but I sound weird saying it. I'm a model, and I do extra work as well. So
why is that weird? I think looking at you, it makes sense now. You've got that look for models. Do you do like with the? I mean, wasn't even on my questions, but with the modeling, are you modeling to show diversity? Is that the whole idea of it?
So, well, initially I started off, not showing. It wasn't anything to do with my disability, and then I got from that. It sort of just grew, and I'd done a lot of commercial stuff for adaptive clothing, and then it come through. I got an extra job on a TV ad with North Melbourne Football Club, and then what else? I've done some foundations and some. I can't even remember what I've done because every time I look at it, I'm like, oh, I did this too. So
yeah,
half yes, but mostly yes. But how I did start, no. It was purely for commercial.
I'm glad you brought that up, so I can now know a bit more about you. So I guess, do you want to, you went through something in your life that caused you amputation of your leg. So do you want to share your story in regards to what happened, and so the audience can get an idea of what happened and especially your age, like, because I'm not sure when that happened to you.
So 2 years. It's just come up to the 2-year mark now.
Oh my God, you're so amazing for 2 years.
From the amputation. It's roughly around the 2-year mark. So do you want me to just start from the start?
Yeah, just you can tell us as much as you want to tell us.
I guess it's like a bit of an interesting story. So I had osteosarcoma, which is bone cancer in my ankle, and it took a year to get diagnosed. So initially how I found it was I was working at a special school at the time, and we were playing cricket, and a plastic cricket bat really just brushed the side of my ankle, and I fell over, and it took me probably a minute to get back up and walk again because it was just really sore. It was pain I couldn't describe. And so in saying that, I think from then on, it alerted me to some pain. And around that time, I was doing CrossFit every day. I was probably the fittest I was the fittest I had ever been. So I was very active. And sort of as I kept going, it just, the pain was more present. So I went to the doctor, and ultrasound, X-ray, calcified ligament. So just sweep it under the carpet, we'll just see what happens. There's not much you can do. So did that, and then got to the point where I sort of was taking Panadol at least twice a day at that stage. So I then went back to the doctor, and then I got referred to a trauma specialist, which then upon investigation diagnosed me with an osteoid, which is a tumor in the bone that is benign. Even though it generally is benign, they did do they tested it and it came back benign. So down the
Right.
line, we figured out they just pulled from the wrong spot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then I was put on to a 10-month waiting list. And in that 10 months, the pain just got to the point where every 4 to 6 hours I was taking Panadol and ibuprofen just to be able to walk. Then I was having night sweats, which we didn't, again, down the line, we didn't figure out that was linked to it. So I would wake up just an absolute pool of sweat during the middle of the night, just randomly. So yeah, 10 months down the line, I thought I can't deal with this anymore. So I paid $5,000 to be a private patient and go and have it done. So what they do for what they diagnose me with is they put a needle into the tumor and they heat it to 90 degrees and they leave it in there for 6 minutes. It just sort of, I don't even know what the correct wording is, but it burns that tumor and it gets rid of it. My surgeon just described that the pain will go instant. As soon as I wake up, I'll be fine. So I went in for that procedure. Leaving the hospital was still quite limping. I was very, very sore. And I just thought, oh, it'll be fine. Over the course of that weekend, the pain did not settle. And I thought, oh, I thought he said it was instant, whatnot. And then I think it was on the Wednesday after, a surgeon called me and he was just saying, because it's a CT guided surgery. So he's like, the second we got the image up, and I wasn't going to say anything to you in the hospital or anything. He goes, because I did more biopsies. Second I got the image up, I thought it was a sarcoma. So I went ahead and did the procedure anyway. And then I did some biopsies and we've got the results today and you have osteosarcoma. So he told me over the phone. And then from then, you go through the whole process of meeting your oncologist and going through what the plan is and all that sort of stuff. So initially, the amputation was never on the cards. It's never going to be like a possibility, as it was very, very small. It was probably like a centimeter in diameter. So all they were going to have to do is a bone graft. So the treatment plan was 3 months chemo, kill it a little bit. Let's see how it reacts to that. Bone graft, then move forward. So I had chemo for 3 months. And within that 3 months, it just grew and became more aggressive. So it ended up growing around the whole of my ankle joints.
Yeah.
And there was times even during that chemo, I just thought, the oncologist thought it was the chemo attacking it, that I would have pain for 5 hours. And it all made sense. So there was an alternate option, and that alternate option was to remove the whole ankle joint. So it's going to take a longer surgery. Skin is now contaminated, so you'll need plastic surgery, which will take longer to organize. So then they would put a rod up through the middle of my heel to hold those bones together, and then I would have just like a stiff ankle, basically. So I would have no movement and no mobility, and greater risk of the cancer coming back. So they did give me an alternate option, but I looked at it as like, that's not really an option. So yeah.
So how do you feel? I mean, we were talking about me having my illness before we went online, so I understand a little bit, but yours, there was all these decisions, because I went through a similar thing. How did you process all these indecisive answers? How did you do that, once you found out? Were you angry, or you went through all the emotions you said, or did you just let it go and just focus on what you had to do at that time?
Yeah, so the initial diagnosis of the cancer, I guess, was something that I probably ignored, and just thought, whatever, and we'll just see what happens. And then when I got told about the amputation, it was more just all right, let's look at what we need to move forward. I did go through I didn't even. I did go through a little bit of a time, not even, like, I sat there and it was probably in that appointment I looked at the oncologist and I was like, well, this has been a really long process. Like,
Yeah.
but am I going to sit here and blame someone?
Mm.
Which you can do, and that's probably okay. I think that's okay because that's a process of grief and going through those emotions. Or I can say, right, this is what's happening. Let's move forward, and yeah, let's just take it in my
Yeah.
stride. No pun
Did you,
intended. But
was that in your was that in your personality to be that type of person? Because it's interesting that I did exactly the same thing as you. When I got my diagnosis,
yeah,
I ignored it and I was in denial. And then as it
yeah,
progressed, I dealt with the emotions later, which I'm thinking, what was that all about? So, and I looked at myself and went,
mm.
okay, that's I've got a strength inside of me that helped me get through that. Is that the same for you? Did you?
Yeah. Like I had growing up, I think I had an adverse childhood and had a lot of challenges in my childhood. So in that, I think it sort of prepared me for that. And so when it got to that, I was like, okay, like let's go. Um, Even in the appointment, I reckon just before I signed the paper, my last question just was because I was fine. I had woken up that morning, and I don't know why. Um, I knew it was going to happen. I
Mm,
wasn't so I and I don't know why. I just had this feeling come over me, and I was like, okay. So I remember sitting in waiting for my appointment. I was Googling prosthetics. And my nan was there with me. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, nothing.
yeah.
um,
Okay. So you had a gut
so
feeling that this might
I
occur.
just had this feeling. And so when he told me, I was just like, okay. I had
Yeah.
fully prepared myself. Um, and yeah, my last question was, so when's the surgery going to happen? And he goes, in 5 days. I was like, oh, shit, like
Yeah.
5 days. And I was like, all right, let's go. And I think everyone around me was more concerned and probably more um, fragile than I was in that
Actually,
time.
that's what I was going to ask you next. Actually, like how
Yeah.
it's again, it's interesting when you're going through something. It's in you, and you can either pull on your
Mm,
resources and be strong, or you can be, do whatever you need to do, like you said. But
yeah.
everyone around you isn't going through it. They're only thinking of
Yeah.
the worst scenario, which is probably worse than it really is.
Yeah.
How did your family react?
Well, yeah. So I, so when, just as they had told me, my sister had messaged me and said, how'd you go? And her and I were very, very close at the time, well, we still are. We're very close. And um, I just, I didn't want her to call me and I didn't want to talk about it just because
Yeah,
I had to also deal with other people's emotions around me.
I get it.
Um, and I guess even though I was fine, it was just an emotional sort of thing. And I knew if I sort of had to talk to her specifically, I would have just lost it,
Yeah,
just out of all the emotions
yeah.
surrounding the
Or
day.
you may have had to have been her support in that moment.
Yeah, yeah, that's right, exactly. So I remember my message to her was quite blunt, and I just put back, "They're chopping my foot off in 5 days, and I'm not joking because I'm quite like I make a lot of jokes. I'm not joking. Don't call me. I'll ring you later. Bye."
Oh my god.
And they were like my exact words.
Yeah.
Looking back on it, I was like, why did I do that? But
Well,
then I was
it
like,
makes
that's
sense
just
why you
how
did that. Yeah,
yeah.
you have to do that.
So
So, do you? So, I again, do you feel like you had to some retreat a little bit so you could get your head around it, and then you could
yeah,
talk about it? Because one of
yeah,
the things that can happen in these situations is you've got to tell the story over and over again,
correct.
and that
Yeah,
could be draining, right? So,
yeah.
for
And you
you,
also have to go through, oh, sorry, and
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
draining
yeah,
because it's like,
yeah.
yeah,
So, did you feel like you had your own support? So you were doing
yeah,
that to everyone. So who did you lean on for the
yeah.
person that you could fall apart on?
Look, I had my sister and stuff, but I don't think I really did fall apart.
Yeah,
Um, I
that's why
sort
you're on the podcast because you're amazing.
of,
Because most people would fall
yeah,
apart, wouldn't they?
yeah, yeah, and I get that. And I've spoken, like even now I talk to new amputees and try and, I don't know if mentor is the right word, but probably I use
Yeah,
mentor
yeah,
to mentor them and help them through that time. And those people really struggle, and
Yeah.
they're like, "How did you do it?" Oh, mate, I don't know. Like, I
Well,
guess, yeah,
the philosophy that I follow on I'm a therapist, right? And so I really
yeah,
believe that there's two ways of doing things. And one is become a victim, and one is become adaptable. And you're a really
absolutely,
good
yeah,
example that you were given news. You did not sit there. I know another guy who's in a wheelchair,
yeah,
and he did the same thing. You just get on with your life, and you don't allow that
yeah,
part of you to dictate. So
yeah.
I'm sure the people around you must have tried to look after you to the level that you wanted to hit them.
Oh yeah, and I guess it was probably self-inflicted. Even though I didn't want, or I was okay, I didn't need support. I self-inflicted that by, if you ever Google osteosarcoma, amputation, that's all it
Yeah.
comes up. Never on the cards for me.
Yeah.
And so I would say to my friends, only because I never thought my foot would go. And I would say, if the foot goes, I go. Right?
Okay. And so they thought that you might do
That was,
something silly.
yeah, that
But
was
in
my ignorance.
reality, yeah, but in reality, it actually made you stronger.
Yeah, that situation came and I was like, all right, so let's. And the week before, I had pranked my friend and said, oh, your muscle's getting chopped off.
Oh,
But then I had to, and I
yes.
made her believe me until I said, no, I'm kidding. But then
Yeah.
I had to go through like that whole process. And, but yeah, no, I
But
think
what about
people
like your
were,
family? Like, did they try and
yeah,
do things that you could do for yourself? Like that's, I remember that for
not,
myself. That was annoying because I wanted to be
yeah,
independent. Because your life changes in a way, and if you lose your
yeah,
independence, you become
yes.
yeah. Is that what
At,
happened?
at the at the start of the amputation, when I come home, I came home a week later. Um, so, and I live by myself. So when I came home, there was lots of that. But everything I could do, I would do, and I just relied on them for the stuff that I needed. I don't have a lot of family. Um, my mum died when I was younger. I don't have contact with my dad. I have siblings that live just about an hour away. There's two there, but they have kids and they're busy. So, again, being independent, I didn't want to interrupt
Yeah,
anyone's lifestyle. But
yeah,
when I needed it,
it was there.
simple things like, can you just come and help me hang out my washing?
Yeah,
I'm at home with crutches. Like,
yeah.
I
Did
had
you?
that.
Was there any?
Yeah.
Was there a lot of stuff that you like? It sounds to me that you adapted really quickly. You were
Yeah, I
able to
think
come
so.
home, so you didn't have to go through that period of like learning how to. You just is this easy for you, or do you think that your
Yeah,
mind
no,
helped you to do that?
I found it very easy. So when you wake up with an amputation, after an amputation, the surgery, you actually have an epidural.
Yeah.
I couldn't move my waist down, and I hated it. So I had it done on Tuesday. On the Friday, I argued with the doctors all day for him to pull everything out.
So you're under the epidural for that long?
Yeah, they leave you on the epidural for about
Oh,
3 days. Well,
why?
they would have, I guess, pain.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
if I hadn't have, I guess, argued with them and pushed turning it off and pulling it out, it wouldn't have been pulled out to I don't know when.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, by the Friday, I had everything pulled out, and the second everything got pulled out, um, I was not allowed to do anything. I locked that door. I went, hopped up, and had a shower.
Well,
Yeah,
your mind and your body. I mean, like I think being on the that fit thing that you were doing, I think
yeah.
you're fit. I mean, that's a big part of surgery, isn't it? So
I
you
was
have
so,
that.
yeah, so grateful. I was so
You've
fit.
got
Yeah,
a resilient. You had a resilient mind anyway, so you have that behind you. So in a way, you are a mentor because I guess you didn't see that you had lost something to the point where your life had to sort of be over.
yeah,
Where I think
yeah.
that's what happens to a lot of people. They feel like their life is over. And so
Mm,
the question I wanted to ask was, how do you then look at the world and see the people in the world that sweat the small stuff, the people that get upset over the smallest things, and you've been through something so big and you're so cool about it? How do you
yeah,
audit that?
yeah. Well, like like I said to you before we come on, that I don't think there is small stuff. I think that how people deal with things and experience things are completely different. And I say this all the time because I'm like, small stuff to me is a leg, you
Yeah,
know? to something that would be quite major, and that's
Mm.
totally understandable. Um, Although I do understand what you're saying, because even during that time, even when I found out I had cancer, um, if my friend listens, she's going to kill me. But the day I found out, my friend had come over because she had an argument with her boyfriend about chicken, and she was crying to me. Okay, and
And
I
did
was
she know
like,
about you at that point?
no,
Okay,
and
okay.
I wasn't, because I wasn't telling anyone,
Yes.
because I hadn't gotten all the information and stuff myself. It was just a phone call. I'm sitting there in my head, mate, I have cancer. Like, and she looked at me, she's like, what's wrong? I'm like, oh, I have cancer.
You
So
told her?
yeah, it just come out.
Oh my god, and
Um,
what'd she do?
she's like, oh my God, and I'm crying about chicken. I'm like, well, yeah. um, but I think it's also important to acknowledge like how we feel, and even if it is small stuff, that's okay, and
Yeah.
that's sort of like a process. But um,
But it
I
also
think there
puts
is a
things
big,
into perspective, doesn't it?
absolutely, yeah, there is totally a bigger picture, and there's so much more
Yeah.
to life and to this world.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
another thing that I see with you and with what I went through is that, it's not taking things for granted. It's like, I'm really sort of
mm,
impressed with you because your life continues and you're really strong. And so your life is continuing where it's really, this interview is important because it teaches people, even though something bad could happen, you always have a way to find the light, to find a way through it,
yeah, yeah,
you know?
and that's also even throughout the whole process of chemo. That was that was the whole thing I thought of as well. There's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel, and if I get through it, I get through it, and
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
life will return.
Yeah.
Because yeah, there
Do
was
you
the
did you
key.
have any
Yeah,
experiences at all through that time that was really, I don't, not that I want to pick on the bad stuff, but like
no
let's
go.
just, because like I just want to make sure that people understand that even though you're really strong and resilient, you still are human, and there probably were times when
Yeah,
you were feeling low. And then I
yeah,
guess I just want you to have a moment to share maybe one of those moments so people can understand that you're not a Superman, you're a human being who
yeah,
just went through it and chose to go down certain paths.
yeah.
So do you
Can I
recall a
can I share
moment?
two?
Tell say two.
Because one's going to be disability related, and one's just going to be about the cancer.
Okay.
So when I with the chemo, there's two different types. One of them flipped me. Every time I had it, it flipped, and I think for a whole week, and it wasn't me, it wasn't myself, it was just what the chemo did to me and how it made me feel in my body. Um, it really made me depressed
Okay.
for a week.
Yeah.
Am I a depressed person generally? Like, no. In that week, I didn't talk to anyone.
Mm.
I would cut off. I just didn't have energy. Um, I guess in that time, you would go through, I would go through moments where I'm like, why is this happening? That was not they were not my thoughts. That was just like
Mm.
how, as a result of the chemo.
Okay.
Then the second I felt fine, all of that went. So I guess there's one,
Yeah.
and
So
that's
the so
sort
so
of
one was
one.
one was pharmaceutically induced.
Yeah.
The
So
chemo it's not pleasant for a lot of people, is it?
no, no. And then so once I learnt to manage that, so my it didn't really happen my first round, but then as it progressed, and I had it for a year. So as time went on, I think it got worse and worse, the feelings and the effects. Um, but I learnt to manage that, and I had my own, which was just cutting off
Yeah.
as much as like, because talking to people was just exhausting, going on the
Yeah.
same things,
And as
and
much as you're a strong, happy person, it's okay for you to have, I mean, like
absolutely,
1 week. I mean, look, you're talking
yeah,
about 1 week. It's like it's okay to have
yeah,
a week where you just lay low and just
exactly, yeah. And that's what I thought too. I thought, well, I know I experienced this for a week, so let's just get through this week. The second I start feeling better, done, and that's what would happen. Um, I guess the second one is when I did have my amputation, and whether it was probably more around when in the month that I didn't have a prosthetic, or even when I was still learning to. Prosthetic didn't really take me long to learn, but in that time where I was getting comfortable in a prosthetic, um, was the accessibility.
mm,
there's no accessibility. Like, I guess
Well,
prior to me,
you couldn't get around on your own because of the
yeah,
fact that
wheelchair.
yeah.
If I used the wheelchair, if I was using crutches, it is difficult
It
out
is. You
there, and
notice things from a different perspective, don't you?
absolutely. And now I know what people are talking about.
Yes.
Like,
I remember
where,
once I was in the city of Melbourne in a wheelchair, and one thing that I know, someone was pushing me, but one thing that I
yeah,
noticed that really blew me away was there were so many people that would not give me eye contact.
oh no, people just think you're like,
They just
yeah,
think I can't look at him, and it's like, oh my god,
yeah,
like, and then the people that look at you, they give you so much sympathy, and it's like you don't find that normality in the middle. So
no,
yeah, like,
no.
so what now? Now that you're also teaching and mentoring people, what do you think is the most common obstacle for men with disability? Is it the accessibility?
I think so. And it also, like, pull it back a bit. It also does depend on, I think, the result of the amputation. Um, Mine, I had time to prepare. Some people have traumatic experiences where they have car
Yeah,
accidents or
dang.
boats, or, that itself is trauma.
Mm,
Then they go through that process of losing a limb and that grief. They don't have time for that to prepare. So they have to go through the trauma of their accident and their experience, and then they have to go through the trauma of losing a limb,
yeah,
or whether it's even being a wheelchair user. Um,
true.
so yeah, I think there's
So there's that.
um,
What about things like acceptance? Like, what about things like people not treating you like you can't do things?
yeah,
Does
yeah,
that happen?
yes. Now, unless I meet new people, um, but I don't really get it now because I live in a small country town.
So everyone
Um,
knows you.
Everyone knows me. So
Yeah.
now it's not an issue. When it happened, yes. Like, and that was the thing I hated because I'm like, I'm still me. So even I remember when I turned back, I returned to work. Um, well, I just went in for a visit one day, and everyone was like, "Oh, hi," and I was working in a 5-6 classroom at the time, and even going back into the classroom, like, that was like the worst. I was so scared and I was so nervous, and I even wore pants, um, just because I was like, I'm not different. And
Mm,
even the kids were like, I remember when I walked in, some kids had tears in their eyes just looking at me, and
yeah.
they also hadn't seen me for a while, so there was like,
Yeah.
this relationship. And the second they realized, oh, it's still James,
Yeah.
it
And
all
again,
went.
that's the importance of this type of talk because I really do think that society still sees a disability as like
Oh,
something's wrong or
it's
something's
still, yeah,
broken, right? Like there's a guy, I can't remember his name. The other guy that's got no arms or legs, he's just got a torso,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think Spencer, yeah,
Yeah, and calls around and he's got a family, he got married. Every
yeah.
time I feel flat, I just watch him on YouTube
Oh,
because
yeah.
people have this misconception, but in reality, how do you think this whole thing has changed you?
It's it's changed, yeah. Um, I don't know. I think it's changed everything. The way
Everything?
I look at people, the way I deal with things, the way, yeah, everything. Like,
Mm. So
one story,
it's become a good thing.
yeah, and I think also, like, there's so much to it. Like, when it happened, and this is what I say to people, I was 23, and
Mm.
um, okay, I'm only young, but up until 23, I might have had a shit life. I'll accept that. But I have not done one thing that I've regretted. And there's nothing that I will regret. And now and I'm happy with my life. I had a great job, and I still have a great job, and I'm still doing everything I want to do. And then moving forward, I have new goals, and I have new achievements I want to achieve. And they're not normal. They're not what everyone else gets to, they're not goals that everyone else gets to have.
So can you
So I
share one
sort
with
of looked
us?
at it in just walking, even.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
no one
Okay.
else gets to, yeah, just
Yeah. No,
even little
yeah.
things like that.
I get that. It's like
Running, yeah.
that you're
Um,
doing it. Are you? Do you feel confident in the new way of becoming that your body is still there and you have an extension, and now you're just learning how to use your
I don't think
prosthetic.
I've ever been more confident in my own body than now,
Wow, that's great.
ever.
Yeah,
And yeah, no, like
yeah.
I look at photos of me now with 2 legs. I'm like, who is that? Like,
Do
that's
you
weird.
have you returned back to CrossFit and all that stuff? Or you
Yeah,
do?
no.
Oh my god,
So
that's really.
I went to I went to the gym 10 days after my amputation,
You're crazy.
and I did a CrossFit workout with just the one leg.
Yeah, wow. So,
Yeah, I do
that's an
triathlons
inspiration.
now.
Okay.
So I've done. So look, I've only just started. So I did the first season start of this year. I don't have a running blade. I ran in my walking leg. Um, I actually get my running blade on Tuesday. So again, they're my next goal. So running triathlon with the blade. Yeah,
So
yeah.
before we finish, I'm so inspired by you. I feel like I'm going to go for a run after this. Um, and I can't run either. I'm still learning how to
Yeah,
run, but like I'm going to make myself. What
yeah.
advice would you give to people just in general about life? I know it's a big question, but like just in your mind, what is your mantra in regards to how you see life and what you do to get through?
Hard to answer that question.
I know, but you've sort of
I
answered it by saying, I think that,
Yeah,
your goals are really inspiring and you don't have any restrictions. It's not as if you're saying, oh, I can't do that. You're just doing
I
it.
just
Like, yeah,
yeah. I I guess I'd answer that in there is no limit, and you are the limit.
yeah.
So if you want things, you know, it's only you stopping you.
Goosebumps. I mean,
So
for someone so young, I can see you, I can see you traveling around just inspiring people because I think we need more of this advocacy where
yeah,
people believe in themselves when they connect.
yeah,
And when I was talking about the small stuff before, I wasn't undermining that people have small stuff. I was
yeah,
more undermining more
yeah,
the small stuff in our brain.
yeah.
Like the restrictions that someone has, say,
Absolutely, yeah.
to do a triathlon, but yet here you
Mm,
are and you're just doing it.
yeah.
So it's that sort of
Can I
stuff.
share one more story?
Sure.
I
Yeah.
could talk for days. Sorry.
That's all right. We'll have you
um,
back.
great, please. I had to get an ultrasound. I don't even remember what it was. A couple of weeks ago, and so every time I see someone that works in a hospital, or whatever, they always ask, "What happened? How old are we?" Blah blah blah. Have all the time in the world because they're medical professionals. They want to know, of course. So I went through. And then it gets there. It always gets to the point where they, oh, that's so sad, or I'm forever waiting for it. Got to the point, and she just looked at me and goes, "Well, that's shit." And so I had already gone in there in a challenging mood.
Yeah.
So I thought, no, I'm gonna go for it. So I looked at her and I just said, "What is?" She goes, "Wow, well, that you have one leg." And I was like, "Oh, is it? Like, what's shit about that?" And she couldn't really give me an answer, and she just sort of said, "Well, um, like that is shit." And I was like, "Well, it's actually not."
Mm,
And I was like, "I'm not offended. Don't say sorry. I don't want to hear it because like that's annoying." I said, "But I just want you to go home and have a think about what you just said
yeah.
and look at life differently because my life is not shit." I said, "My life could be better than yours,
Yeah.
whether I have one leg, 2 legs. Doesn't
Yeah.
matter." And I
Yeah.
was like, and that's also disrespectful because someone who could have gone through a very traumatic experience with one leg could be still dealing with that. So reiterating that their life is shit is not going to help them.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like
I was
that's
like, so that is
such a
very
powerful message.
disrespectful. Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought, no, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So it's very disrespectful. I'm not offended. I don't care that you said it to me, but I just want you to have a think about what you say next time.
Yeah. Wow.
So I thought, even, I don't even think, because she couldn't even give me an answer. I don't think that was
Well,
her
it's
actual
the
thought
go-to,
process.
isn't it? It's the go-to because
Yeah, I
everything is
think it's what,
compared to a normality, and
yeah,
you're
and I think,
demonstrating that your life is grounded. And
mm,
look at your own life before you make a comment about my life.
yeah, and I think society has built this response,
Yes.
and let's get rid of that. Let's,
Yep.
doesn't matter
I think
whether
we
you're a
should.
wheelchair user
I think
or,
we should get T-shirts and spread the word. James,
yeah,
thank you
go out on
so
a limb with
much.
that.
I'm so inspired by
Thank
your
you.
story. I wasn't expecting this, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
No, I was,
Cool.
but it was. I mean,
Yeah,
I really want you to come back because I think that you've got a voice that we need to, especially because this is a men's podcast and it's all about
Yeah.
men looking at their adversity. So thank you so much. And
Thank you.
yeah, I look forward
Come
to
back
seeing you
anytime.
in your blade.
Yes. Thanks. I don't know if you have me on Instagram, but I'll
Yeah,
put it on there as
well,
soon
send
as
me a
I get
photo
it.
so I can attach it to this podcast
Yeah. Cool. All
if you
right.
can.
I'll do that.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right.
This
Thank
has
you.
been the Secret Men's Business Podcast. And now to listen to this podcast, it's out on Mondays. And don't forget, every Thursday we have a retro podcast, so you can listen to our whole library and catch up with all of the interviews. So don't forget to hit subscribe, and we'll see you all soon, guys. Bye.